Hello and welcome. I'm going to put some links in the chat for easy retro boards. And let's see. Oh, we only have one. Never mind. I'm just putting one link in the chat for the easy retro board. Okay. All right, well, welcome everyone. I'm Amy Cole and I'm the State Development Resources Manager at Oregon Housing and Community Services. Joining me is Martin Jarvis, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello everyone, Martin Jarvis. I am the State Tax Credits Program Analyst. Happy to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us in this breakout. We have a lot to talk about, I think. I mentioned some questions in my part of the presentation earlier. I think we will start with the new Ag Worker Community Housing Program and start with those questions. Once again, I've put in the chat a link to the Easy Retro board in case you would like to just put some comments there instead. And Martin, if you could help out by, if you hear people mention something, if you could make sure it gets on the retro board, that'd be super helpful. And of course, Martin is here too because he runs the Ag Worker Housing Tax Credit program and is also part of the Ag Worker, Housing Facilitation Team. Yes, I got it this time. Okay. So let's just start with the first question. So what do y'all think? We're interested in thoughts on if this funding should be paired with Ag Worker Housing Tax Credits, and if that should be a requirement or just a choice or not at all. Yes, Meg. Oh, we can't hear you.
Thank you. A little bit of clarification in here. When you say this funding should be paired with agricultural worker housing tax credit, are you implying for development? Because
this is for development.
Because I believe, and I can be wrong, Martin, you might be able to, I fought a lot for this bill, and my understanding that was for pre-development expenses. I might be wrong, but that was my understanding.
So that pre-development is included as a potential use of the funds, but it's also for development.
Perfect,
one of the things we need to do with.
Now, if we pair it with the agricultural workforce housing tax credit, that wouldn't limit us to do it with 9% as well, together. Because the agricultural tax credit has never been enough to build an entire project.
That's true. That's why we're wondering if this funding, if it would be helpful if this funding was paired with that. But we're open to anything, really. So we want to, would that work? Would it not work? Is it?
We should start just doing yes or no in that box. Is that how it works?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Sorry for the easy retro. If you click the plus sign, you can type comments into a box, and then other people can also, if they agree, can click the thumbs up, and it's like it's a vote for that comment, or saying you agree with it. Not really a vote. We're not taking votes, but just says you agree with that comment. Does anyone else have anything about that they want to say to the group or add to the discussion about this first question? If not, I'm happy to move on, and we can always come back. It doesn't have to be a completely linear conversation. Okay. So we're also interested in your thoughts on what income level this funding should focus on. Should it be limited at 60%, 80%, lower? Any feedback on that for us as we go forward? Okay. And please feel free to, if you don't feel comfortable coming off mute and talking to the group, happy to have you add things to the easy retro, as I said, and I'll post it again in case people have joined since I put it in the chat earlier. Okay, so no one has anything that they would like to talk to us about or let us know about the income limits that should be associated with this funding.
Well, Amy, one of the challenges that we are having in the is that the income limits are not going up to the pair with inflation. So right now, as everybody else, farm workers are getting raised in their hourly rate because farmers want to retain them. So I'm concerned to say 80% because 80% is not going to be looking good for an application. But at the same time, 60% might get us into a problem with families not approving because, again, the income limits, I don't know if you guys are going to revise those income limits and make it at least a pair with inflation, pair with reality, because it is true that they are getting paid more. But as we know, everything is more expensive. Can you give us kind of like a
Sure. So we use HUD income limits actually, and so we are we don't have a lot of control over that, right? So that's why we're thinking like, well, so for our GHAP program and our veterans GHAP program, those have 80% income limits, which makes it a little easier to serve people who are, you know, still low income, but are above 60%. So I didn't know, so we were trying to figure out if that would be helpful for this program as well, to have it more flexible. Of course, if you wanted to use it with tax credits, federal tax credits, you'd have to be at 60% or lower. But we could have it, but if it was, I don't know, if it was helpful to have 80% as the maximum, we could certainly consider that.
I vote for yes. Again, especially if we are using the hard income limit, because
okay, great.
Yeah,
great.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? Oh, thank you, Claire. Thank you. That's true for income averaging. You can go up to 80%. So that is true. Thank you. And I am apologizing because my dog is barking and I, like 3 years into this, it still happens. So apologies, y'all, if you can hear that. All right. So I think it seems like we're probably ready to move on to the next question, which is, does anyone have any thoughts on whether we should try to use, so it's $10 million. That's what we got for this biennium, which is so much more than we had before, which was $0. And also projects are getting more expensive because of increases in labor and materials costs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So should we at OHCS be thinking about using this on multiple projects, say smaller amounts of funding over more projects? Or should we be thinking about fully funding maybe one project with this funding? And we are, as I said, neutral on all of this at this point. We have not started planning for this funding yet because we didn't have any engagement or feedback from from partners. So would really like to know if that matters at all to y'all. Rosie, yes.
Sorry, I'm trying to catch up here. So one of the questions that I have is the type of projects that you're looking at. Are they mainly multifamily housing projects, or can some of it be used towards homeownership for, in co-ops?
Great question. And I think it's for multifamily.
Is
But manufactured home parks can also be funded with it.
Okay, that would be great because there are quite a lot of farm worker families that live in in manufactured housing.
Yeah.
That raises a question of capacity. How many organizations right now are doing mobile or manufactured homes from farm workers? Something that I would like to get into, but capacity is an issue, obviously, and in learning exactly how that works and how it will be effective. So just keep that in mind. I think this is a very tough question for me, so I'm gonna skip it. I don't think I have an answer for your question about funding multiple projects or all going to one project. I will think about that more. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. And and our fourth question, and after that, we can see if you all have other things you'd like to talk about regarding this funding. So are there thoughts? Well, this goes back to what you mentioned at the beginning, Meg, whether we should use some of this or all of it or none of it for pre-development funding and investments. So it sounds like that was something that I don't know, that sounded like, Meg, you were interested in that. I don't know what other people have to say. And Meg, if you have anything else to say about that.
I mean, I'm doing my notes in the board. Okay.
Thank you. We appreciate that. All right. Sounds like nobody else has any thoughts on that at this point. Please feel free, of course, to put comments on the Easy Retro board. As we have said before, or in the chat, that's fine too. Let's see. Yeah, the question is what requirements would be attached to pre-dev funding? And I don't have the answer to that, but I do know. I do know that we are starting some pre-development programs in the future. We've had some input sessions about that, so I don't know if it would follow the same sort of requirements or have different requirements. Something tells me we would I don't know what we would do, but likely be similar requirements. But of course the funding would be focused on ag worker housing and farm worker housing. So all right. Is there anything else y'all want to talk about with this new funding source? Like, would love to hear just questions and thoughts and ideas that you might have about it. Or see it in the Easy Retro board too, that's fine.
I have for one thought,
Yes,
just
please.
seeing this type of funding in other states, sometimes, I think it's helpful to have flexibility around the AMI served, including allowing some of that to be changed by the time you get to conversion and lease up. And the reason is that often, as folks have talked about, you'll have a farm worker population earning a certain income, and then the seasons change or the agricultural sort of makeup of that population changes because it's been a couple of years since the funding was awarded, and the AMIs need to change, whether they need to go up or down. It can be challenging in rural communities to nail the targeting. So I think some flexibility around what happens during lease up on OHCS's part for the funding is important. So some ability to revisit the the AMI levels when justified.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, well, we have about 13 minutes left, so I'm gonna move on to our other topic, but we can definitely come back if we have time at the end. And please feel free to add more to the Easy Retro board as we go forward if you have other thoughts and ideas about this new agricultural worker community housing fund. You know, we're excited to get it up and running, and also we definitely want to make it a tool that is useful. And yeah, we don't want to have barriers to using it, and we want it, you know, to be as easy to use as possible for our partners. All right. So I'm trying to find my questions. Okay, there's just a couple of questions for, for the risk mitigation pool, but as with the Ag Worker Community Housing Fund, we also are happy to talk about other topics while here. And one area that we are really trying to understand and haven't quite figured out how to approach yet, and would love ideas on and about, is how we can achieve geographic equity with our risk mitigation pool. And this risk mitigation pool, again, is we have $4 million. We're standing up the program, or working towards standing up the program, and it is specifically for permanent supportive housing. And because we have $4 million, we've had to limit the scope somewhat to permanent supportive housing that is within the OHCS portfolio. So that can be funded through our permanent supportive housing program or through other OHCS funding sources, but is limited to that, to our portfolio. So the metro area currently has 2 risk mitigation pools, right? There's one for Portland, and then there's one for the 3 counties, Washington, Multnomah, and Clackamas County. So we're just thinking about how to use this funding in a way that serves all the parts of the state needed, and also is responsive to projects that need this funding because of events with tenants. So let's hear your great ideas. Or let's see your great ideas on the on the Easy Retro board. That'd be fine too.
Amy, I was writing in the board, and
Great.
are we in question number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yes.
Geographic equity?
Yep.
Okay,
For the risk
perfect. Thank you.
mitigation pool. Yep. Yep, that's where we are. It's kind of the light blue or medium blue. Yeah, that's where we are. And so the other question that we're looking to answer is, are legal fees a relevant cost to pay for these funds? So sometimes projects have legal fees when they're dealing with tenants. And we were just wondering if people thought that was something that should be funded with the risk mitigation pool, or should we keep it to just like physical issues? So anyway, would be happy to hear your thoughts on that. I see at least a couple of PSH Institute graduates here. So, and maybe some others that I don't know. So if you know, please feel free to come off mute. put something in the Easy Retro board for the last 2 questions, but really interested to hear. Aha, Nora, see, I knew I could get you to say something.
I was starting to type something in. I would say with the second question, there are plenty of physical issues. And I think that the funding should be just focused on that. Regarding geographic equity, I see the position you're in, that it's really hard. I would, here our projects are in Lane County and Eugene Springfield area, and Lane County does have a risk mitigation pool. It's not nearly enough for the needs that we have. So I would just kind of, you mentioned the Portland area has some. I wouldn't suggest that you keep that in play for like, oh, we shouldn't put your new risk mitigation fund in certain areas because there's others available. It's not enough. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, just like your OHCS funded PSH projects, just how much those are distributed across the state, and if there's some way to do some metric related to that. And
Yeah, and I think that's what we're thinking of doing, is like looking at where, so we do know where they all are and we can kind of do a ratio. We also want to make sure though that like there's funding throughout the biennium, right? Because if it all gets eaten up, I mean, certainly we would like to show proof of concept so that we can hopefully get additional funding in the next biennium. So it's kind of having a balance, but really what we want to do is support the PSH developments so that they can be sustainable for the long term and serve, you know, chronically homeless people in their community for the long term. So thank you for that feedback.
I would say the other
yeah.
comment that I have, just as a reaction to what you said, is that I understand wanting this to last. Also, I think more funds need to be put in this area. And so to show how much need there is for it, with just being, just the same way we do with all the other funding sources, it's oversubscribed. And that's how we show how much the need is and how much, for other funding sources like the development community is ready to put projects in the ground, but specifically for this risk mitigation is fully understanding the need to continually support PSH.
Yep. Thank you. All right.
Sorry, so I don't know if you're looking at the EC Retro board, but they did bring up a very good point where now what was considered urban or rural country cities are really no longer rural, they're more suburban. And what is OHCS doing to or going to do to help address this? Because right now the metric and everything's either divided by, the funding is divided by either metro or rural, right?
Urban, yeah. It depends on the program, but for like the state development resources, it's mostly urban or rural. Sometimes we have a small urban or like a small urban, metro, smaller urban and rural, but agree that that needs definitely some rethinking and retooling, and appreciate you bringing that up very much.
Amy,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, we have seen a lot of, situations with before areas like Woodburn were considered rural areas, but, because of the situation in Portland, people are moving to the suburbs, and it is creating us a lot of challenges. But I understand that rural areas are defined by the census. That's what you follow?
That's what we have been
Census?
using.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think so. That's what we go to define if it's not a rural or not.
Right.
Are you looking into maybe defining a different kind of rural areas?
I can't
Maybe I'm
actually.
putting you on the spot, but.
I mean,
I'm
we're
just-
thinking about if changes need to be made, but I can't say that we have like, I don't have a lot of information about that today.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but if you have ideas about it, please put the information in the Easy Retro board and or in the chat or tell us, and we're happy to consider that as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, we have about 3.5 minutes left. Is there anything that anyone here would like to talk about in terms of these 2 new funding sources or anything else? We're happy to hear your thoughts on any kind of feedback you'd like to give us.
I just have a question, Amy.
Sure.
So we can keep working, even
Mhm.
though we are not in this meeting, we can keep giving you.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. I don't have
Yeah.
any more. I think,
Okay.
yeah, I want to think more about it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Meg. Appreciate it. And appreciate everyone who has spent their time here. Yeah, it's like I said, we're happy to hear anything you have to say, or you would like to put anything in the Easy Retro board, or if there's something that you feel like we haven't talked about that needs to be talked about, please let us know. You can continue to work on the Easy Retro board, of course. Yeah, but thankful for everyone who has been here. We appreciate you. I'm going to put a link in for the we have a, what am I trying to say? Survey. That's the word. Survey. We have a survey. I'll put the link here if you'd like to fill it out. Helps us figure out, how to go forward, and it's just helpful if you can fill it out. If you don't want to, that's up to you, but we appreciate it if you can. Let's see. I think that's all I have to say, but really appreciate you taking the time this morning. I know that these engagement sessions can be pretty intense and take a lot of time on people's calendars. We truly, truly appreciate you being here and lending your voice to help us serve you better in the future and be better partners with you all. So thank you for being here and spending time and giving us your ideas. And yeah, really look forward to working together in the future as we move forward together in this new new process that we're all working to co-create together. So we appreciate that so much. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the day and good rest of the week. We're almost to the end of the week. So thank you so much, and see you soon, probably in another one of these.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good long weekend. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later.
All right. Thank you, Martin. Appreciate you. See you later, Felicia.
Bye.